there we go. So we'll welcome everyone to Productive Agent Podcast. Today, my guest is Jaren Davis. And Jaren and I, we've known each other a long time. And so Jaren has been in the real estate industry since 1986. Okay. I think his license number is like 3, it's like, so he's been in the real estate development since 1997. Jaren has served on the Salt Lake Board of Realtors president. He was the UAR board president at one time, and he was the NAR regional vice president, right? Currently serving as an executive officer for the last 8 years of the Salt Lake Home Builders Association. Man, that's an impressive resume. Talking of, so welcome, Jaren. Welcome to the show.
Rob, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to your followers.
Yeah. No, the honor's mine. I mean, my genius is just surrounding myself with smart people, right?
Me too.
Yeah, I just don't be an expert. Just bring people that know their field and bring them in.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to talk about, Jaren, is like, the thing is, I mean, it's a national problem too. Is inventory, and so the way I understood it, it started with the crash in 08. I mean, once that inventory got absorbed, the overbuilding, then there really wasn't much building for several years, but life still marches on. The increase of people, coming into the country, coming of age, that still marched on. And so it took a few years for the shortage to really rear its head. And now we're really in the midst of it. And so that's just the beginning of it. I know there's a lot more to how we have a shortage. And, I wanted to kind of, hear your take on that. What are some of the things besides just we didn't build for a while, but I know there's more to it than that. So just go for it.
Rob, what would be interesting for you to know is that in that Great Recession, the home builders were building 1,400,000 homes a year nationally.
Right.
And we need to be building about 1,000,001 just to stay even. So we were real productive at that time. But when the Great Recession hit, we actually went down to 343,000 units. So over 1 million taken away from that market. And you've suggested, and it's a very wise comment, that our country continues to grow by its birth rate. So we're creating families, and by the migration, the in-migration accounts for quite a bit of that growth. So America needs to build that 1,000,000+ homes just to stay even. And that's not, and it's not just building homes for that group. It's also replacing some homes that age out, or some areas that transition from residential to something else. And a simple example, Rob, but they'll sound kind of funny. I just heard it on the radio on the way in. I-15 expansion. So as they go north, they're identifying that they're going to have to take out some businesses and single-family residences as they widen I-15 to deal with the traffic going north, so up into Davis County, et cetera. So it's that number includes aging and demolition, but that growth in our country is something that is constant for us, and none of us don't want that. Who doesn't want to have family have the same opportunity that we were given? So, and if a builder is building, just think of an inventory mindset where you're at 1,400,000 units, and then 1 million units cut off. So any of the sales agents, loan officers, anyone that's listening, think about cutting your business by 2/3, and what happens to you. You not only are shocked financially, but you're hindered emotionally from that transaction because of all the people you've had to let go, and the loss, maybe in inventory of lots and homes that were hard to sell. So you might have even lost a great deal of capital just getting rid of the inventories that you had. Well, now
it's a mess.
Yeah, so let's march forward. You said that we kept marching along in life. We did, which meant that pressure started to build for that need but the mindset of moving back into or transitioning into that building is met with apprehension from the home builder.
Well, yeah, because their fingers were still burnt. They weren't going to stick it back in the fire.
You don't immediately go back out after you still are licking your wounds.
Right. But
And so
these were open wounds too. They weren't even scabs.
yeah. And so now on the builder's confidence, as we're going into that, you're licking your wounds and starting to progress, but you don't build back to what you had back before the Great Recession, because you still have that lingering fear. And so our ability to catch up was hindered by that hesitancy.
Just by psyche, yeah.
Yeah. And that, Rob, I'll suggest to you that it still exists from this standpoint. If today we saw a pandemic, an inflation, anything that gives indication of something catastrophic that could even be minimal as it compares to the Great Recession, the guard is put up almost immediately.
Oh, yeah.
So we have the builder's confidence will go like this as it relates to news and information. And for individuals, think of it. You're probably watching the stock market a little closer because of your retirement programs. You're watching personal investments, your credit card debt, so it's just that's a mindset of our society. But as it relates to the builder, that hesitancy put that pressure on inventory.
Right.
But also
getting out, that's for sure.
Yeah, but think of some things that you might not put on that same industry cycle. At the time people left, a lot of our labor force was Spanish and Spanish speaking. And so think about those people that have relocated here but still need work. Where do they go? Well, a lot of them went into different professions. A lot of them more into the medical technical fields and things, and found favor there. And so we went from having a large inventory of trade labor to having a shrunk by need labor, to then having a need for labor, and then not having that natural flow, because those individuals, they too got shocked by losing their job, and they're in a secure environment where they're working, so they're not quick to leave and come back.
Sure. Yeah, and who wants to leave a job inside a hospital to go work on a roof?
Yeah. And that's one industry. You can think of, you and I could brainstorm for a half hour all the different industries where that labor force went, which we're grateful for, but it put handcuffs on the building industry having the needed labor force. And at that time, additionally, there was some pressures on the migration patterns that existed that would allow for that free flow of that labor force. And so we have that builder hesitancy, fear, whatever you want to call it. You have a shortage of labor. And then so that's coming out of the Great Recession and into this marketplace, somewhat normal marketplace. And then see, let's fast forward. We could fill in that gap if we need to, but let's fast forward to the pandemic. Okay. Now everyone's in shock, not just an industry, a housing industry, but everyone's in shock and bewildered what to do. Fortunately, we were identified as an essential service. And so our work crews could still go out, not only essential service, but think about our labor. If you're framing a home, or if you're hanging the sheetrock, or doing almost any aspect of the construction of that home, people are 6 foot distancing naturally. I mean, you don't have people walking around like this built
on a job site. No.
Yeah. So we kept going, but we still had those handcuffs. And you probably never get political on this show, but I'm going to make some comments that we can get into if we want or not. But
yeah, I try to stay a little neutral. I mean, if they're facts, I don't care about facts.
So these will be factual, and I don't want to disrupt any of the mindset as it relates to that. But President Trump and his administration knew construction, and was very friendly, and so he came into the administration understanding the needs of that industry. Whereas
also what that industry does, I mean, I don't think people realize, when construction, in my understanding, it's the way I understand it is, when there's construction, $1 billion worth of construction, my understanding is construction dollars roll over 7 times in an economy. Because it's spent, just the money spent, but then you have all the labor working. So they're going out to dinners, buying washers and dryers and spending money. And then now the supply houses, the washer and dryer, people are spending money, the restaurants are humming, everybody's happy. I mean, it's just, it's a big
from the moment the construction of a home begins, the city starts making money. And then they have that permanent residence that keeps the coffers filled for any community, whether it's a local, municipal, or state. But the Trump administration relieved a lot of those regulations, those pressures, as it relates to the ease in which we're doing construction. And so the other thing that came at the same time of the pandemic was a complete change in philosophy as it relates to those federal overreach regulations. And so you had that additional handcuff. So you think, as you come through this and see all these different things that the builders have faced as it relates to constructing these homes, it's been quite a miracle that we've been able to build the inventory that we have, even though we're short. And that extends up till today, because as we're doing this podcast, we understand that we've got an inflation we're trying to deal with. Yes, the 10-year treasury has passed the inflation rate. So we're at a point where the Fed will probably stop raising rates. But think about an affordability issue. And then before the election, they pushed that inflation so hard by raising the Fed rates that we go from 3% to almost 7% in the fastest, quickest uprise in our history. And so now that buyer that already felt affordability as a complication now is just saying, I call uncle. How do I
more than double the cost of money?
Yeah, how do I do that? And so then the builder's sitting there thinking, okay, crap, I've got all these little things happening. Now my consumer has an issue with regard to financing, to getting the permanent financing. At that time, Rob, remember, as agent, we had waiting lists as builders of people to occupy the home because we just couldn't keep up with the demand. So people would come in, the builders took lists, and when they Yep. So then you'd go in and say, okay, I'm ready, buy. Well, when that interest rate went up, those lists, a lot of people fell out because their qualification just went out by the wayside. But those lists, so they just start going down them until a buyer would qualify buyer. So they sold their inventory, but what that was doing is depleting that list. And so now we're in a position where that demand has met the inventory, and the builders are building as much as they can with those components we've talked about to meet the demand. The first time in our history, our known history, this was Lawrence Yun and Robert Dietz of NHB and Elliot Eisenberg, some of our really popular economists, have suggested to us that this is unique. And what that unique factor is that we're selling more new homes than existing homes. And that doesn't usually happen. We're usually as you know, we're usually selling about 12% of new homes compared to existing. And we're selling more new than existing, which is
the existing homes have almost just, the people, they just disappear.
Yeah. Well, and another factor, Rob, that is interesting is that if you were buying new, a consumer was used to paying as much as 25% more in value for the new home than existing. The average is about 15, but it's usually 15 and higher. And right now, existing and new construction are at the same value. So two unique factors. One, price is equal. Two, we're selling more new than existing, which is bizarre. And so that pressure's on new construction as well. One of the reasons that we could address that isn't new construction oriented, that why that existing is so caught up, is if you and I are baby boomers and we want to empty nest and buy something on a single level, no maintenance, blah, 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 where do we move? There's nothing's being built. Well, guess what? The millennial on the other end wants that same prototype. And so we've got the biggest generation in the millennial, the second biggest generation in baby boomer wanting the same product that isn't available. So what happens is that millennial wanting to come into the market is stuck because the baby boomer has nowhere to move, which means the move up family has nowhere to move, which means the
Right.
first, so that ladder of progression that you
Right.
in your home ownership life cycle is stuck. We just,
Right.
as a baby boomer, I have to stay in my big home that could accommodate a family because I have nowhere to go.
Right.
And so that brings us to another topic, and we'll get into any of these in detail that you want, but that brings the last topic, which if you think about the hindrances, one of them is the zoning or the city's influence
Right.
in catering to or falling victim of a
Right.
not my smart attitude. And Rob, before we came on, you had mentioned something about the construction in terms of townhomes and things like that. Well, the builder had a buyer and it could afford this much home. And the cities were saying, this is what you can do on single family detached, which is larger lots. And
Right.
the builder's saying, okay, I can't build for this buyer because single family detached land, et cetera, puts
Too
that price
expensive,
just
right.
above there. Yeah, too expensive. And so the default is to find all the places in municipals where you can put townhomes, because that fits that price range where the new home owner
Right.
can go in and buy something. And so there was a big push for townhomes and attached product. And what happened is the community started thinking, oh crap,
Oh,
look at
yeah.
all this construction, look at this density. And it was, apartments became very popular at the same time. And so you see townhomes and apartment buildings being built, and you just, as a resident, you think, oh crap, look at all that new construction, look at the density, this is crazy, we need to push back. Well, the reason that happened was because the city, and I'll have an open debate with the city planners and everyone, the city didn't let us meet the market demand by building that product that the baby boomer and the millennial would like. And what that is a very small lot,
Right.
single family detached, and
Right.
amenities taken care of so that we can go out and recreate. I want to spend time outdoors and with my family. They want to spend time outdoors and enjoying the what
Right.
they've fallen in love with.
And they want a low maintenance lifestyle.
Yeah.
The millennials are like, they're like, they're not excited about working in the yard. I mean, it
No,
just doesn't float their boat. I mean,
well,
some
I
people are like,
think
oh, I
when,
love working in the yard. I'm like, hey, you're
yeah, think when you and I were in that home buying, Draper, I'm pointing at Draper and South Jordan and other cities said half-acre minimum, all brick homes. And we thought, yeah, I need a big yard for my family. I mean, that was our
that
life.
makes sense.
We wanted those yards for our families to party in, and our kids' friends to
Love
come
running
over. And
around.
yeah, so we wanted that, but who wants that now?
Nobody, yeah, not even the younger, even the family. I mean, the family people, they want something, but not quite as big.
Yeah.
They don't want the same size lot. They
Well,
may want a yard for their kids, but
yeah, well, think of think of some of the war cries of some of the elected officials, which are stop the development, stop the growth, don't do density, all those kinds of things. And so they'll get an elected office, and then they have the not in my backyard people out there chanting with
oh
signs.
yeah.
And
Well, and I live in Colorado Heights. I mean, they come out in droves here. They don't want you to do anything.
well, and if in our generation we had a voice, it was talking to neighbors and meeting with the elected officials. But today's voice, this attitude can promote itself on social media to make it feel like it's hundreds of people when it's a
Right, and
very,
it's only
very,
a few.
yeah.
Yeah, because like I remember when that guy was trying to put that, I forget his name, the developer, he put up that 6-story, the last mid-rise over there on the corner of 215 and like, what's it, 3,000 or 3,500 east. And it was, he wanted to go up 12 stories, he was allowed 6, but he was trying to go 12. I mean, they came out in droves and, and I did some quick math on it. And what I guessed was, based on the property tax, it would be the equivalent to like maybe 200 houses, right? Without adding one child to the school district. If you build 200 houses, guess what? You need another school.
Yeah.
So that's like a tax loss, where if you could collect all those, I mean, if I had my way, I would line the freeway all along 215, all the way down I-15 in the Canyon School District. I would line those up with, 12-story buildings and have the greatest school district in the history of Earth.
Yeah, well, here's another thing, Rob, that's interesting to note. When you allow the market to meet the demand, it's a better product anyway. And
Right.
so we would probably go back and allow that 12-story today if we were wise. And so we need to bring that attitude that you just expressed forward, so that the both the resident can know and feel safety, because let's go in those same neighborhoods. Nobody dislikes what was built. I mean,
Right.
they're actually it's so all the things that they argue against, and then they just say, well, gosh, I'll give you an example that's not related, but it'll kind of bring home this thought. In Heber, my sister-in-law fought Walmart coming into the neighborhood, and everyone did the same thing. It was just every, picket signs, and social media made it feel like it's 500 people. Fortunately, the city fathers were wise and let Walmart go in with some other retail outlets. Those people that carried the picket signs and argued are now shopping there. And if you threaten to take it away, they bring those picket signs out and say, don't take our Walmart away.
Right,
So
right.
people come full circle. The unknown is kind of scary. And so you can promote that to be a lot bigger deal than, so that innocent resident that's just sitting there thinking, gosh, it makes sense to me. And then they hear this horror story. Then all of a sudden they're going, well, yeah, I'll ban forces with that. That sounds really, really scary.
Right.
So.
No, I get it. And the thing is, and it's what baffles me is people are trying to stop natural growth. You can't. And what I've kind of observed, and the way I understand it, is when you try and stop it, then developers and things like that are, especially the big, large ones, it's okay. Now it's every man for themselves. So they're going to do what's best for them. So there's no cooperation. There's always a battle. So once you're battling them, they're going to develop something.
Yeah.
The best thing to do is say, yeah, let's talk through what makes the most sense, because the demand is there, and it's like we can't stop growth.
No, well, and Rob, the thing that's interesting is, who in your family would you pick to not be able to live in the area where they were raised? So
Right.
I have 4 children, and if my attitude was that we build enough, I'm in Holiday, so I'm up by you, but if we build enough houses for everyone, let them go figure it out. Well, where do my kids go? Where do my grandkids go? What if they want to live in Holiday because they fell in love with it?
Right.
We need to address that for the millennial. This is another important stat. The realtors did an extensive survey, $1,500,000, and in that survey they found that the millennials do in fact want to buy. That was one of the questions.
Right.
Do you guys want to buy? Because there's been some discussion. Are they just going to be renters? But no, they want to buy.
They want to buy.
And then the baby boomers, when they said, look, we need to help them by making housing affordable. Making housing affordable means that we increase density.
Right.
Then they said, no, leave them alone. They'll figure it out. We figured it out. Well, here's the difference. Yes, we figured it out because my parents figured.
But it was wide open space Holiday at one time.
Well, but let's not even go there yet. When my parents feared me being able to buy, and I did, but the difference today, it's not let them figure it out, because that millennial, if we took the baby boomer group back and put them in today, it's 200% of the cost of when we bought it. And that doesn't mean 200%. So it was 250. And so now it's twice. What it is our homes would have been twice as expensive back then, putting dollars all equal. So
yeah, and in proportion to income, right?
Yeah. So there is a very sincere problem, but let's address that as it relates to density. So we're talking
before you go, I want to talk about, you said because I was talking to Adam Smith, and so, because I said, yeah, if we want to see our grandkids, and he goes, oh no, you're going to see your grandkids. They're going to be living in your basement.
I know.
Like, okay, that doesn't work either. I mean, I want to see them, not that much.
Yeah.
So, and of course, I mean, your kids don't want to live with you.
Right.
So, but anyway.
So
I just
Rob, that density, Yeah, that density doesn't have to be townhomes. It doesn't have to be high rises, like, some of the
No,
apartment.
like Salt Lake had, like I lived, in those little bungalows. They were little 0.11 lots, with a long, narrow house,
Yeah, so what we're talking about is probably in that 12 unit an acre zoning.
Right.
So it's not, when we say density, we're not talking about the
High rises, right.
most units and high rises, but what that density is, it's on small lots, and they're not long and skinny like Brigham Young did. They fit the house. They have enough for outdoor recreation, like a patio to barbecue and thing, but they're not big enough where you have this massive lawn. So
Right.
you've got everything that you need to be able to recreate somewhere else and have your family over. So we could take the people to projects and they wouldn't even know that the density was at that. So we're not talking about anything dramatic, but we're talking about a change. We're talking about
Right. The change, that's the key right there.
That's
As soon as
right.
you mention change, they get their panties all knotted up.
Well, and the thing that's interesting is right now, don't we talk about clean air, water,
Right.
transportation delays, all those kinds of things. What happens in these communities is that it allows us to be working, playing, and living in the same area. So we don't have the transportation issues because we
Right.
have to go back to those office buildings
Walkable
we're
community,
talking
right.
about. Yeah. I can live next to those office buildings in Cottonwood Heights on I-15, and
Right.
there's recreation, and then I can get on I-15 and go up into the mountains and things. So I don't need the transportation. So we clean that up. And if I don't have the transportation, it improves the air quality. And then as it relates to the water, if I don't have a half-acre yard that somebody walks on once a year, then
Right.
I don't have that. So
Right.
we all the popular talking points are covered in allowing for us to build what the market's looking for.
Right. Yeah, and that's the key word. That's exact right. Yeah, and you have two demographics that want the same thing.
Well, and if we didn't allow growth like a lot of the people are promoting and suggesting today, just think of the pioneers coming into the valley with Brigham Young and us having those same groups. We wouldn't even have a valley. And so
Right.
change is difficult, but it's the way that we grow as a community and with our families. So how many generations have I been living in Salt Lake? Well, a lot. How many more do I want? A lot. I
Right.
want the people that want in my family that want to live in our communities to be able to do so. And it's incumbent on me
Right.
to be a voice in advocating for that.
Right. Yeah. To me, it reminds me of like parents that like they don't want to allow their child to grow up. They're overprotective and actually ruin the child. They become like these weird adults. I mean, it's the same thing. You got these people like, no, we're protecting our community, and it's like, and the same thing happens again. The developers come in, the builders come in. They're doing whatever they can to satisfy themselves, and they're not working to meet the needs of everyone because the pushback forces them to do what they got to do.
Yeah, Rob, this will take us on a really weird twist, but I just want to make a statement that maybe kind of goes back to at least giving a story that you can relate to, and then just think, okay, well, maybe the media and the information that I get isn't accurate. We hear about the forests disappearing, right?
Right.
And how let's say the Amazon and all kinds of things. Well, when we go in to take the lumber out of a forest
Right.
for our housing, what it does is it allows that company to go in and reforest. The forest actually improves by 20%. So if we took out 100 trees and built homes from them, we have 120 trees that are going in and growing. That forest is healthier.
Right, because it's pruning, right? It's no different than pruning a bush.
And you don't have those issues as it relates to the forest fires.
Yeah,
What happened?
Yeah, those forest fires.
Rob Bishop was
right.
brilliant. It's the Forest Service is in the Department of Agriculture for a reason. The Forest Service was set up 180 years ago or whatever it was to be managing forests, which meant that you cut them down and got rid of all the dead wood, started the new trees, so all the wildlife and everything grows and fosters. And when you don't do that, it becomes a tinderbox, and that's what happened in California and other
Yeah.
places.
And I forget,
So a
like
lot
2
of
billion linear feet of dry timber laying on the floors that could have been scraped out of there and lowered the cost of lumber. I mean, it was just, but instead it burnt, like that stuff was so hard and so dry, it just burnt so hot.
Yeah, so it's not a group of people going out and saying we want to ruin the world. It's a group of people that know professionally
Right,
the good that comes with the process in providing homes for people. And you and I as realtors could talk for hours about the value of home ownership.
right,
I mean, it really is it's the foundation of freedom. It's the foundation of a family. We're
Right.
better citizens. We're more stable as consumers. We're past generational wealth. So
right.
home ownership, if you
And
take
and
if
actually
you
promotes
strip,
literacy.
yeah, if you strip that from a community, you're gone.
Right,
You just fall apart. I can go and be the king of my own castle and keep the government at bay and enjoy all those benefits of
right.
home ownership. Whereas those communities that don't have that, gosh, that's a different society that we don't want to live in. So
No,
there's
exactly right.
there's personal value, there's intrinsic value, there's environmental value. That I mean, if you really critically looked at it, this is a very important part of our society, and
Yeah,
we need to move with it. We need to
yeah,
accept that growth, and then realize that we're all conscientious of doing it right.
right. Yeah, I mean, if you're growing, you're growing. I mean, it's like gaining weight. You're not going to buy bigger clothes. You're going to try and keep wearing smaller clothes. No, it doesn't work. You have to buy new clothes, and that's always been my angst is, this is happening with or without you.
Yeah.
So you're better off getting in it and guiding it versus hitting it head on. Yeah, head on never works for anybody.
Well, and so let's look at two examples. If we go to California, the entire state, and add up all the new construction that was built, a high regulation state, and then go to Texas, low regulation state, and take just Houston and Dallas. So 2 cities in Texas, low regulation, an entire state, 10 times the population, California, high regulation, Dallas and Houston build more homes. Their affordability is within reach.
Right.
They have nothing in those communities that is detrimental. In fact, the people want to leave California to go to Texas. So if the government is in our way in preventing us from doing that, we've talked about the local, but the local, state, and national need to be on board with us, because 25% of the cost of your home is directly tied to regulation. So you and I buy a $400,000 home, we just gave $100,000 in regulation. And I'm not suggesting in saying that I'm advocating for no regulation. What I'm saying in that is that need to be aware of it,
Right.
and understand that is something that we need to monitor, not have the slippery slope to California and get to a position where we're so tied with this overreach that we can't even produce what the market's demanding.
Right. In Switzerland, it was when I was there in the 90s, I remember there was like this stick frame house standing there, It was just and I asked the guide, I said, "What's that?" And he goes, "Oh, that's somebody wants to build a house." So what they do is they have to build like a frame. It's not anything, they'll tear it down when they start to build, but they put that up to let everybody know this is what I'm building. If anybody objects, then what say you? If nobody objects, like in 30 days, they tear it down and build that house. And they
Wow.
and they they don't have none of the regulations we have. Their theory is, well, you got to live in it.
Yeah.
In our society, granted, it's a small little country. A lot of our regulations are designed to protect people, but they morph into something different.
Yeah.
Because we could still protect people and I would bet that we could probably eliminate half of the regulation cost.
Well, and
People that
even delays
don't want to.
Yeah, even delays, Rob, cost the homeowner because that's interest charged on what be the land loan, the
Right.
construction loan, any part of that process.
And it all gets passed down to the
Yeah,
consumer.
yeah. And if the homeowners actually think about this, because they don't know they're going to own it, so they're not advocating it yet. But if they knew in advance that they would be paying for those delays, they'd be sitting in the city offices saying, "Hey, your delay is costing me $100 a day.
Right.
Let's get on with it." So
That's a good point.
yeah.
Yeah.
And think about zoning too. So when you have local residents, they have a voice. The new resident doesn't have a voice yet because they're not there. And so the people that have the need don't have a voice. So that voice needs to be the people that understand if it's me as a practitioner or me as a father, me as a grandfather, whatever it is, I need to be the one that advocates for that smart growth. I mean, I'm not just saying freewheeling, let's build 20-story buildings everywhere,
Right.
but smart growth that allows us to meet the market down, keep that affordability in check, and allow people to buy their home, and then us to keep it up with the inventory.
Right.
Utah's not going away. We're still number one in a lot of categories, and people are moving here. It's no longer the secret that our outdoors are the best in the world, that we've got a really wise government that is on a zero-based budget where
Right, a very fiscal government, right?
yeah, I mean, it's just things are beautiful here in Utah. So that growth is going to continue. We might not be having as many babies as we once did, but the growth is certainly bigger.
Right.
And our diversity.
Because you have just more, considerably more people, even though they're having smaller families. But there's, when you have 500,000 people, or 100,000 families having 5 kids, and now you have 600,000 families having 3. I mean, there's still more.
Yeah.
So it's definitely more people. So, and it just keeps going. And, and like you said, it's like, this is a great place. It's like, so, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? We want to live here because why do we want to live here? Because it's so good. Well, that's why other people want to come here. But back to affordability. So, I mean, let's talk about some of the affordability. Because obviously there's not going to be one fix for affordability. I mean, it's got to come from many different avenues or veins, if you will. Because the smaller lots with the 1-story, even with a basement, is in high demand, both by our generation and the millennials and the Gen Z's coming in. So that's one aspect. And then the other one is, like manufactured housing. I'm all for it. And I think if people just got away from the stigma of it, if you ever like Google search, and you can go Google search and find like manufactured community. I mean, they're drop dead gorgeous properties.
Yeah.
Buildings.
I'll give it out a shout out here to our Parade of Homes. Rob, we're in the home building industry. We're continually looking for ways to improve on that efficiency, but we've got 2 things that'll be in our parade that I'd like you to pay particular attention to. One is that we're building a home for the Aaron Mendenhall's community, that homeless, it's slipping my mind what they call it, the Other Side Academies project.
Right.
And the home that we're building for that will be in our Parade of Homes, and it's built out of metal studs. So look for that, because that's a unique home style. And part of the reason that we're doing that is for the efficiency, but also to show off that it can be done. The other home that will be in our Parade of Homes is actually a container home.
Is that right?
Yeah. What this company,
I know what they are. Yeah.
Yeah, but what this company's been able to do, it's kind of been out there, but it's never really quite taken off. This company finally is to the place where it can take off, because what they can do is they can take these containers. You used to think, okay, I'm living in 53 feet by 12 by 18,
right.
and that's not their box. They take the container and they can hook them together this way and together this way, and so they can build as big a product as you want. But it's extraordinarily efficient and sexy. They're putting them in Jackson Hole. We could keep naming the popular resort communities, but they're wildly popular in Airbnb and unique locations. But these things are just cool, and you'll be able to see those in the parade. So we've got two prototypes that at least we start to bring out to the market, so it's not scary to people to see these.
Right. Well, what Rodney Newman did that project downtown, but didn't he do like a 6-story building, apartment building out of
Yep,
container?
with and I think Susie Martindale was involved too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, because I remember talking to Rodney, he said he almost gave up several times because the municipalities were just so brutal to work with.
Yeah. Well, and Rob, when you say smaller lots, the reason the smaller lots work is because of the land cost.
Right.
So we're not saying sacrifice anything. It's still the same home, and it's actually more efficient. So you're living in
Today's
something.
building, right? Today's
Yeah.
building is way more efficient.
Yeah. So you're building in. You're not. The only thing you're sacrificing is that big yard that and I have a decent sized yard. That how often do we use it? We just had a wedding shower for my niece, so we used it. But
Right.
How many more times am I going to use it this year? I don't know. But I could.
Or could you just go to a park and rent a pavilion?
That's right. Or a clubhouse or
Right.
whatever. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I forget, there was a condo up on up by the zoo area. It was a real nice condo. It was a little more upscale, and they had real nice size units, but they were only 2 bedrooms. But they had like inside, they had like game room. They just had like, if you were an empty nester and you were having grandkids come over, and you had a big family room in the basement, but you used it, once a month or once a quarter when all the grandkids came over. So this place had the big giant family room in there that the pool. I mean, it was just internal, like on the 3rd floor in the middle of a 5-story building or something.
Yeah.
It's just like, it was perfect. Had ovens and everything in there. It was like a clubhouse in the middle of a building.
Rob, we've got just on that, and then I want to get into some conservation issues because I don't want people to think that we're build. I want to share some of the involvement we've had on the conservation side. But we have a home for any of your listeners that want to come see it. Just reach out to me or you, and I'll get you the contact. But we have a home that's 12.5 feet wide.
Oh, wow.
And it is cool. It feels like a normal house, but it's 12.5 feet wide, which means that you can put the density at 40 units an acre and still have a unit. And that home is affordable. So if the cities aren't giving us the density that we want as it relates to this detached, the attached is improving in terms of our capability to deliver that affordability, but we need the loosening of the zoning restrictions and allow us to build that detached single family on.
So how long is it?
It's not long. It's normal depth, but it's high. So you've got 4 stories.
Oh, it's a 4. So, I see. So it's a 4. I mean, that reminds me of Amsterdam. So Amsterdam, I was so proud. So what Amsterdam did to control the runaway properties, right? They taxed you on the width of your house. And so all the houses were real narrow and they went tall. Like the stairwells were like, you couldn't get furniture up the stairwells. So like on the outside of the buildings, they would have like these big beams, and then they'd have these giant picture windows that came out, and so all furniture got hoisted up.
Yeah, well, they figured out a way to make this work where you don't have to worry about that. So let's get into that. I don't want to direct this, but if you're okay with
go
it.
for
Look, so build doesn't mean that we just take over all the spaces where we want to.
It doesn't mean we're going to rape and pillage the earth.
What it means is that where it makes sense, let us have the densities that we need so that we don't sprawl, because the sprawl is something that we don't need. We can do it in the more of the confines that we have left if we're smart about it. But here's some things. How many of you listening have been out to Draper's Corner Canyon and enjoyed either hiking or mountain biking?
Right.
That would be 1,100 homes if it weren't for our actions on the Quality Growth Commission. We actually left in place the development rights and opportunities of the landowner and preserved that property, preventing it from being 1,100 homes and have it be that open space. So we've got a very active group that goes in that I was a part of: Red Butte Garden, the Jordan River Parkway, the Bonneville Shoreline Trails, Willow Heights. I could keep going and going and going. The barn in Park City with the big flag on it. We understand that we need these critical lands for habitat and watershed, and then for our own view vistas and corridors.
Right, to maintain.
Yeah, so
Beauty of Utah.
while we're building, we're actually promoting and advocating for these preservations so that we can keep this lifestyle that we have and enjoy. But don't force us into those by making us build stuff that nobody wants. My wife and I, as empty nesters, don't want a big lot.
No,
And the cities think that I do and are mandating that.
right.
And I'd like to have them interview all these new home buyers and say, how many of you want a big lot? The city thinks you have to have a quarter acre, third acre, a half acre, an acre, whatever.
Right.
You know, who are those people? Well, there are going to be some, but it's not the majority of us.
Majority, no.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I want 10 acres, but I don't want it in the middle of a city.
Oh, yeah. Let's go out to you went to
Middle of nowhere, yeah, I don't have any neighbors, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reason why I want 10 acres, you know?
Yeah.
Let's go. So density, obviously density is probably the number one thing.
Yeah.
Solving the problem that we have. You know, so density and then regulation. And then, you know, there's all these different technologies that are popping up. I mean, again, I'm going to come back to the, so let's say you have a, you know, higher density, you have smaller lots. You can bring in a manufactured home that is very desirable looking, very well built. The way I was taught about manufactured housing was that they had to be built well enough to travel. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, and they're built in climate controlled environments versus out here in the rain and the snow and the cold. You know, I mean, come on, let's face it, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, they don't even have to be built and assembled and travel. I mean, why can't they just build the walls? You know, I mean, they could literally build the wall with everything, all the electric inside of it, you know, bring it in and assemble it, you know, and I mean, that would speed up the process, which makes it cheaper.
Rob, I've toured properties both locally and like in Pennsylvania and others that are doing that. What happens in that controlled environment is that you're able to put all the systems in place, the plumbing, the electrical, the insulation in that controlled environment. It's more true.
Right.
And it can travel. It doesn't have to be a box. It can be walls. And so you put the floor plate in and then you put the walls up. And we have some
drop the walls, completed walls in it to assemble together.
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to SunPro. They're working on doing a system where they in their lumber yard under a manufacturing proposition they will put together these and then you just go out and lift them in place. So the framers out there and studs them down and you have the wall that's put up. The industry is a little bit slow to transition because your labor force is all concentrated on doing the stick framing and the things. And so what needs to happen is those systems need to come with that labor force that understands it. But there's a lot of people working on those different innovations, which also include computer built homes where it just sits
printing, you know.
Yep. So that will come. But that, if we don't address these other issues, will also be unaffordable.
Right.
I mean, we really need to address all the issues as it relates to. So we've got land, we've got labor, we've got the cost of the materials, which involved in the pandemic, the supply chain issues, the financing, we have the government regulation. You think about all these different components, and if every one of those just took a little bit from the homeowner.
Everything a little bit of innovation in each segment, then now all of a sudden you have affordable housing. So let's talk about that. You mentioned financing. So financing, what's that like these days to finance a development project?
Well, right now it's difficult because you had that pressure on the that jamming up of the rates on the inflation. So the banks are sitting there with their portfolios and they have the loans out. Let's say their loans out at an average of 3.5%, 4%. The savings now are requiring an equal or greater amount, and so they're offset, and they're just in this position where they're thinking, "Oh my gosh, my balance sheet's getting upside down." The pandemic didn't put the workers back in the office building, so those commercial loan inventories are difficult. No wonder the banks are stressed, but they're okay. We just need to get through it and realize that the Fed can't keep pushing this interest rate so high that it makes that component something.
They can't throw the baby out of the bathwater.
Yeah. So our belief is that the inflation's been kindled and that we now need to have the Fed start looking at a potential for reducing the rate. We won't see those interest rates that we've enjoyed these last
No.
years, but
They were artificial because that was the Feds with their they were buying the bonds. I mean,
I think if you looked at the average loans over like 50 years, the average is like 8%. So we're still really good. But
yeah, our rates aren't high. We're just suffering from whiplash.
yeah, exactly. And if we can settle somewhere around 5 for a little while, we'll be fine. And then
even 6, just 6 flat.
have that constant so that the home buyers are thinking, oh crap.
Right. Yeah, that's so and then so now we things that are happening locally, right? So we have this new, I'll shift gears on you a little bit. This new grant. I mean, it's not a grant, I'm sorry. It's the new first time home buyer program that what I got like 53 million or something, and you can get up to $20,000 for new construction. When I first saw that, I was like, well, that's good for the builders. Why not get, so then, and after doing some digging, I learned that the whole purpose was to incentivize builders to build product in that price point, which I don't know if they can, and it's up to 20, it's not 20,000. So,
so the money's given to the consumer and it's to ease the pain of that affordability. And yes, there was motivation to push the builder to build something for less. But I'll guarantee you one thing, Rob, our builders don't need any incentive to push the price down.
no.
It's that they want to meet the market demand, and clearly, clearly, if we don't have an affordability problem, we're not meeting the market demand. The problem isn't our desire, it isn't our capability, it's the limitations that are placed on us in this free market that isn't free because of the hindrances that we've talked about. So,
like the overregulation, the zoning's another regulation. I mean, I'm so laissez-faire. I'm like, why do we need zoning? People, oh my gosh,
Yeah, no, we've got some really, really, really smart people in our governmental affairs group that suggest that zoning should just be residential. If it says residential, you can build whatever residence you want in that zone that's residential.
Right.
And then in these other zones where you have the
industrial,
yeah, well, the failing retail and other areas, let residential be built there.
Right.
So
all these blacktops. I mean, I live right down the street from it's I forget what Hillside Plaza.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing in there. I mean, Rite Aid's gone, the gym is gone, everything's gone.
Rob, if you go, so let's talk about Hillside Plaza, but let's also put into that same conversation the old Cottonwood Mall site. So
what a debacle that is.
Yeah, so let's go back up that critically. So that was a regional mall that really was kind of an isolated success story because it didn't have any major corridors going. I mean, you had Highland Drive, but it wasn't sitting on any freeway system. So it's already kind of unique. And it sits there idle. We have a group of people that want to come in and build something. And the city council and Mayor Rob Aubrey and the entire city council unanimously support the development of this project. And then guess what? The not in my backyard people get in there and just kind of start talking about crap and wreaving havoc and generating these awful stories. And so they do a referendum and it gets voted down and kills the project. Well, guess what? What we learned in that referendum is that all the people that were close to the property were voting against it. And then if you went just a little bit further away, beyond the 300 feet and even let's say a mile, so let's be generous in that distance, the people that were outside of being right next to it were all in support of it. And so that referendum was a vehicle for not in my backyard people to push propaganda that gave fear to people that weren't making an educated choice as it relates to their decision. So that referendum was pushed to something that was more regional, so that people, if that's a regional asset, then why let the person that lives across the street on Highland Drive say I don't want it for unfounded reasons?
Right.
And so now you come full circle. They're basically building the same thing, and it's met with favor. And I'll tell you, after it's completed, every single person in that area the close residents will be grateful it's there for all the attributes that it brings, because one of the things it'll do is it'll stabilize and increase the value of their property, because now they'll have that work, play. They can walk across the street and enjoy all the amenities and assets, and it'll still have residential, a great deal of residential, both rental and for sale. So it's just, that delay, like the delay of the legacy highway cost the residents $200 million, and you got the same bloody highway.
Right.
So, it's just, we need to be reasonable in our thought process and allow those city fathers that were engaged in understanding and seeing what was being built and what is needed, and accept that they were smart enough to make that decision in a representative government.
Right. Because I know that, because they want to repurpose the Hillside Plaza. Because it's obsolete land. It's current use. The retail's dying, and we need land. Well, it's like, well, hello.
Yeah.
What part of that don't you understand?
That could be just as cool of area as like, let's go on Holiday Boulevard and Murray Holiday Road. That you can make a real cool project with there. And if you listen to the couple of people who don't have a view in the backyard anyway, it tears up and goes out towards 23rd East and 70th South. If you really understood what was there, if they built that artificial home and then tore it down, people would look at it and said, well, that's what you're talking about? Well, I'd want that. But if somebody's able to come in there and say, no, hey, Dorothy, home wasn't that great a place to live. You need to stay here and walk the yellow brick road. It's just, it's the propaganda is unbelievable, Rob.
And it's become, the 21st century version of it has become such an art that,
navigating social media.
Yeah. But anyway, but that's it. This conversation, I don't know, we can go in so many directions, but let's summarize it though. So the problems we have with affordability is overregulation. We have the NIMBYism of not my backyard lot sizes. We need to get into, smaller lots, and then the labor, but I think if you created the jobs at a decent wage, I think the labor will come back. Laborers will come back, I think. I don't know.
Well, can I take you down an interesting road on that?
Sure.
If you went back, I think it was in the 1950s, oddly enough, Rob, where the government was pushing higher education, and it became this thing. They call it STEM today, but they were pushing every kid, and I'm a victim or a recipient, however you want to say it. My parents wanted their children to go to college, and all of their children went to college and got a college degree. Bless them. I wouldn't trade mine. I'm grateful for it, but that's not the only answer.
No.
It's been thought of and perceived as being the only answer. And in fact, it was negative to think of somebody going in the trades. You're going to sit on a ditch, lean on a shovel, and be dirty all your life.
Right.
Well, the fact is our push to that higher education has given us a lot of people that are overeducated, perhaps, and have consumer debt, and then they come out and get
they're underqualified for life.
Yeah. So we're on a real big push.
And in debt.
So we're on a real big push to at least, if nothing else, bring awareness to the trades, because the trades, you can go in and get a job that's equivalent and maybe pays better than the college graduate, not have the student debt. And guess what? You have pride in what you're doing because you get to go home and say, I built that. And
I was a house painter. I loved it. I just didn't like the business. I didn't like the business the way you work.
And then, Rob, think about this. Most of those trades that have that entrepreneurial spirit, are hardworking and capable, end up being these business owners.
Right.
Far, if money were your ambition in terms of getting that college education for a high paying salary, whatever that motivation is as it relates to a monetary attribute, the people that have come up through the trades and own these businesses are far wealthier than the people that are looking for them as their accountants, et cetera.
And there's very few of the college degrees that really pay off. Doctor, lawyer.
We in addressing that labor issue. So right now, you think of the vocation trades that are in the schools. We're working on getting those back and having them be accepted and not having them shunned.
Takes the
but
stigma away from it.
yeah, but so they actually say you need a 4-year degree, and we have all these colleges that are saying, come get this 4-year construction management degree, which I won't speak bad about, but we have a lot of people that just want to learn the trades, how to use a tape measure, how to use a hammer, which trade do they want to do? Do you want to be a framer, a roofer, a sheetrocker, a painter, a concrete guy? So what we've got is a 12-week program that we're bringing to Salt Lake, where young people, old, it doesn't matter, but our ambition is to get those people that are wanting to decide what to do with a career. They come in and they learn which trade they like, and they learn minimal skill sets that when they go out on the job site, they're not having to learn out there. They're immediately available to.
They know how to use basic tools. They know the vernacular.
I mean, we know, because we teach them continuing education. The people in the trades are very happy and doing well, so they're making a good wage, Rob.
Oh yeah,
I bet you, I'm embarrassed I don't remember this statistic, but I think your odds are better to have a higher paying job coming into the trades than those college graduates. And again, I'm not speaking against it. I'm a college graduate. It's benefited me in my life, but I see a lot of people successful without it.
No, like I said, unless you're going to be an engineer or something real specific, these basic degrees. I mean, I've had 2 businesses in my lifetime. One, I was a paint contractor, and I had guys work for me that all had college degrees. And I've been a real estate broker. I had 100 agents. Most of them had college degrees. Not one of them had a degree in house painting or a degree in real estate.
Yeah. So, no, your summary is beautiful. Regulation, 25% of the homes.
Cost is regulation. I didn't realize it was that high.
Yeah, a big hindrance to the California, Texas example. Labor, we're doing our best to do it, but let's promote any of these people that are either looking for work, that are listening, or parents. Trades is a beautiful place to work.
Oh yeah.
Land use, absolutely. Land use is a very critical component. And we're not talking anything that's scary. We're just talking about communities that we could take you to. Have somebody go drive through Daybreak, which is a community that was built without hindrance on zoning.
Right.
And look what it built. I mean, they've got amazing open spaces, amenities, lifestyle choices, single family detached, high rise, and every age group. It's a very, very healthy and desirous neighborhood. So land use.
The thing I see, one of the things I think that would help is, we got to be able to get through because like you said, in the local cities, we're only talking like 100 votes could literally change something, but the young people don't get involved, because they just see the old people, whatever picketing, and young people. So we need to somehow educate the younger people, because if you had 100, if you had 200 millennials show up to vote, then guess what? The complainers are gone.
Well, every $1,000 knocks about 800 buyers out of the market. Anytime somebody suggests something that costs a house $1,000, let's have those 800 people come and stand before them and say, so that does nothing to the quality of the neighborhood, nothing to the quality of the home, but you're telling me that I have to pay it, and now I can't afford the house. I'm here. Tell me why we're implementing that. Yeah. And I guess educating that younger group, I think, is probably a critical element to fixing this problem. And educating you and I, if we're against it, to understand that's where our children and grandchildren are going to live. Right. If you and I can advocate, I do, and I'm sure you do.
I want to, but not. That's why I've had I had a podcast with Adam Speth, and I want you. I'm passionate about this topic.
Yeah, and Rob, just for your listeners, I'm willing to come on this with somebody with countering views and talk it out. I'm willing to talk with you and a city official, elected official, anyone. Let's if there's
elected officials won't do it.
Yeah, well, but no, if there's 2 sides and somewhere I've misspoken, let's come and have a healthy discussion and find that common ground, and let's help each other understand where one of us might be a little bit off. I'm pretty confident in what I know from having spent 40 years doing it, but I'm open.
Right. Perfect. I'll think about that and see if I can find a guest with countering views. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Wow, man, this was a good conversation. I really, I mean, we're kind of over my normal time allotment.
I'm
I
sorry.
didn't want to stop it because it was good,
Yeah.
mainly because people's attention span is not that long. So, you know, you know,
We lost people at the introduction is what you're saying.
right. Yeah, exactly. So, but that's just the way it goes. Well, anyway, so Darren, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you and discuss any of this, how would somebody get a hold of you? What's
My
the
mobile, yeah, my mobile is 801-560-6776.
Okay.
And Rob, let's reward somebody that's listened this far to the end. The first 10 people that reach out to me that tell you or I that they listened this far into the podcasts, we'll give them 2 Parade of Homes tickets. So 10 people, 20 tickets. Let's get, yeah.
I'll promote the Parade of Home tickets thing on there.
Yeah, perfect. That's $40 a winner. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, 40 a winner, right? Awesome. What a great thing. Wow. Thanks, Jaren.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, thanks for joining us, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. The objective of Productive Agent Podcast is just to to educate, bring in, have a conversation with people that kind of know the topic, versus just reading what you read on social media. So really appreciate that. Productive Agent Podcast is powered and funded by Aubrey Home Loans, which is me, Rob Aubrey. I am a loan officer. So anyway, if you have any questions about that, bring it on. But in the meantime, thanks everyone for joining us, and you guys have an amazing day.